welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi Achint. आइए समझें जियोपॉलिटिक्स को एक भारतीय नजरिए से.
So India has a mindset where it hits, it punches below its weight. We have to punch not above our weight. We have to punch not below our weight. We have to increase our weight and punch the post.
ये हमारा सिद्धांत है. हम घर में घुस के मारेंगे.
You know, victims of terrorism do not sit together with perpetrators of terrorism to discuss terrorism.
जय हिंद, जय भारत एंड वेलकम टू डेव टॉक्स. हमारे साथ हैं राजा मुनीब जी ऑन दिस वेरी एक्सप्लोसिव सीआईए की जो एक सारा एडम्स करके हैं जिन्होंने एक पॉडकास्ट करा है. बड़ा ही एक्सप्लोसिव क्लेम करा है कि भाई हम $10 मिलियन में अननोन गनमैन से लोगों को ठुका रहे हैं. कहीं ना कहीं मेरे को या तो ये एकदम मजाक लगा, लेकिन दूसरी तरफ से मैं जब सोच रहा था, आई ऑल्सो थॉट दिस इज सीआईए की मतलब हालत इतनी खराब है. दे आर सेइंग यार भारत $10 मिलियन में ठुका रहा है, हम उसको $80 मिलियन हर हफ्ते देते हैं, लेकिन भारत काम करा रहा है. ये चक्कर क्या है? सो लेट्स फाइंड आउट फ्रॉम राजा मुनीब साहब. नमस्कार, वेलकम टू द शो.
नमस्कार सर, थैंक यू फॉर हैविंग मी वंस अगेन.
क्या साहब, आप 10 मिलियन में ठुका देते हो लोगों को. भैंस क्या, वहां पर $80 मिलियन पर हफ्ता दे रहा है, वहां पर अमेरिका रोज रो रहा है. वर्स्ट पार्ट इज पीपल आर एंटरिंग इनटू अमेरिका. वहां पर एज पर मिस सारा एडम्स फ्रॉम सीआईए, पीपल आर एंटरिंग, थाउजेंड्स ऑफ टेररिस्ट हैव एंटर्ड अमेरिका, लेकिन उनको वो नहीं पता भारत $10 मिलियन में ही ठुकवा देता है इतने सारे लोगों को. यार ये तो मोदी साहब बॉस मान गए. क्या है यार?
Typical CIA game. I think Aadi will have to dissect this going one by one. So अगर आप देखोगे कि पिछले कुछ टाइम से this is what Trump also said regarding ISIS and regarding Taliban. And he even in one of his debates also said the way we withdrew from Afghanistan, it was very embarrassing, right? दूसरा, Sarah Adams is on a podcast, and the way she's dropping names, the way she's criticizing FBI, the way she's saying that our borders, what has happened to them, this clearly tells you that somewhere the deep state in USA is also getting very political. So coming to her 10 million claim of India, it doesn't make sense to her why we are giving 10 million to Mullah Yaqub for building security of Hibatullah. But how does she put in sense of giving 83 million to then Taliban or to Haqqanis sitting in US? Now this is the same Haqqani she talks about. She was saying about I wanted to put a bounty on Musa, who's operating inside Haqqani, and they FBI didn't have $1 million, but they have $50 million to put out an embassy. But the question I want to ask is, you have a multi-million dollar on Haqqani, on Sirajuddin Haqqani, and Sirajuddin Haqqani was meeting the US officials in UAE. So what worth your bounty is for when you yourself list somebody as a terrorist and then negotiate with them, whether it was in Doha with the Taliban or whether it was recently in UAE with Sirajuddin Haqqani. Point number one. Point number two, is Taliban so desperate that for $10 million they will carry out an extrajudicial killings in Pakistan?
Not just one.
Do they really want to? Yeah. Do they really want that their relationship, whatever relationship they have with Pakistan, will be jeopardized on the basis of India? Is question I would like to ask her, because it just doesn't make sense that why would she would come in and she has dropped in a lot of claims and there are a lot of half truths and there are a lot of half truths in it. Okay? And there are a lot of incoherent claims she has made, and this one is a complete incoherent claim, because look, we know we have a relationship with Afghanistan, a working relationship with Afghanistan, a diplomatic relationship with Afghanistan. We have been working in Afghanistan on infrastructure in Afghanistan, on different civilian projects in Afghanistan. We have been providing aid to the people of Afghanistan. We recently have gone through Gwadar and tried to, use that port, Chabar port, sorry. We have used Chabar port as well. And it is going to be a relationship. We are cementing a relationship with Afghanistan when relationship between Pakistan and Afghanistan is bad. But to make this claim that this $10 million was paid just because it didn't make sense to her why it was paid, she thought, oh, because there have been killings in Pakistan, that is why Indians have paid $10 million to this guy. But the fact of the matter is, $10 million could have been an investment into Afghanistan, which India is carrying out. Now, she also claims that, oh, this was given to Mullah Yaqub so that personal security of, Hibatullah could be maintained, and, they could create that security for him. So, what she's trying to imply, and this is the underlying message, what she's saying that, the Kandahari Taliban is being backed by India, but the Pashtun Taliban is still somewhere loyal to Pakistan. So, she's telling the Pakistanis that India is betting its bet on the Kandahari Talibans,
Hmm.
right? She's trying to play that game between the Taliban, between the Kandharis and the Pashtuns. So she's trying to create that notion there. But Sarah Adams had another claim she made was that the terrorists, the three flash points from where terrorists are flying. And let's observe this very closely. She's saying it's Pakistan, it's Afghanistan, and it's India.
India, Pakistan, Turkey.
Turkey we know because Turkey is
पाकिस्तान में
playing both ways.
अफगानिस्तान में फेक पासपोर्ट बनाने वाला बैठा है उनका.
हाँ, फेक पासपोर्ट बनाने वाला बैठा है, who is basically Musa, who is working under the Interior Ministry. But let's see, when she says that it's in India, and then she comes up with an example. Oh, you remember the French held on a plane of Indians filled with 300 whatever, because now what she is doing is she's conflating the two. She is not realizing that America has a problem of illegal immigrants right now, and America is letting in illegal immigrants. According to her own number, it was about 7 lakh 700, 7 million issues, what she's
7
saying.
million, 70 lakh people.
70 lakh, she's saying. So, of course, there is a difference between illegal immigrants and the terrorists who are trying to get into America. Unless and until she is labeling every immigrant as a terrorist, the question is, how come you're letting them in, or is she talking about the Khalistani terrorists which are into getting into US? Because they're already giving, shelter to Panu, Tulan Singh Panu. So that is an incoherent claim, right? By saying that, oh, the terrorists are entering through India, because there are no illegal flights which are, going from India to other part of the country, to, to Latin America, and from Latin America, people are trying to get in, right? The maximum Indians who have tried to get into the US have used the donkey route. They have not gone through this route.
एक
ठीक
और
है.
रास्ता है ना, ये लोग बोलिविया जाते हैं, सॉरी दे गो टू पोर्चुगल, पोर्चुगल से बोलिविया, बोलिविया से दे गो अप.
So that is what they, that is one route which she's saying the Chinese are exploiting. Which the Chinese are exploiting, because Chinese are doing that. But Indians, one, you don't have international recruitment, Al Qaeda recruitment active in India, or you don't have a place where Afghanistan or a Pakistani or a Turkish national is going to come to India, and from India he is going to go illegally into United States. पाकिस्तानी और अफगानी का तो सवाल ही पैदा नहीं होता. We're not even giving visas to them, and there are no illegal crossings happening between us and Afghanistan or Pakistani nationals, where Pakistani nationals will then take a boat or take a flight from India under this thing. So I think that is one very bad claim she has made, totally bereft of any truth or any evidence. It's just based on something which she assumes, because she is not able to place what is happening in the region. Number one. Number two, she talks a lot about Benghazi attacks. Benghazi attacks. Yeah. Benghazi attacks के बारे में बात करती है, and obviously something has gone wrong when it comes to Benghazi attacks within the US judicial system. Within the US judicial system, and she has a lot of grudge against that, right? What she is also not talking about, she's putting everything on Al Qaeda. She's saying it is Al Qaeda everywhere. Look, Sarah has said what we have been discussing, Adi, for last 1 year at least. For last 2-3 months, even on a podcast, we talked about how Pakistan is going the Afghanistan way. We have already spoken about it, right? But how is she mixing ISIS with Al Qaeda now is beyond my thought. Because the man she talks about
Yeah, that's one big doubt that came out because she said that ये जो the Boko Haram guys that were called from Africa, they were taken to the borders of Pakistan, Afghanistan, where they were made to eat ISIS. Now, if Taliban has invited Boko Haram, how is Taliban meeting ISIS? Because ISIS is a dead enemy of Taliban, declared, openly declared.
Okay, so what the ISIS game is now, what she is saying is that, I will take that argument's sake and I will dissect that argument. There is a huge probability that the Boko Haram guys were brought to the Afghanistan Pakistan border, and instead of telling them this is ISIS leaders, the ISKP leaders met them. She herself says that the ISKP camp is being protected by the FC Corps in Pakistan. Right? So, one thing she has proved beyond the point is that Pakistan is actively involved with the ISKP game, and Pakistan is the one which is harboring ISKP. That even the American assessment is very correct.
वो तो
ठीक
अमेरिकन
है
बैक कर रहे हैं उनको.
हाँ, so because the Americans are backing them. So what are the chances that, when she says it's they met the ISIS, by meeting the ISIS, she means they met the ISKP guys sitting on the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan, because we know the camps of ISKP are into the Pakistani region and not into the Afghan region or into the Kunar and Nangarhar region. But Kunar and Nangarhar में उनकी meeting करनी impossible है, because the Afghan Taliban is very very strong against that, right? So
Impossible.
that so what does that tell you? That tells you that the future recruitment which the ISKP, the Pakistanis and the Americans are looking at, are looking from the Africans.
One second. I will stop you right here. Guys, 3 days ago, yesterday we were talking about Africa with General Narayanan. I don't think Raja Saab would have seen that show.
No, I haven't, to be honest.
We have said the exact same thing. The next continent to go up on flames is Africa.
Africa is already on fire.
Yeah. And the easiest way that the Americans or the deep state, if I may, ये जो आग लगाते हैं, is with the ISIS. ठीक है, Islamism and ISIS. बंदा छोड़ो अंदर, आग लगाओ, शुरू हो जाओ. It kind of multiplies really fast. तो ये now you've kind of hit the nail right on the head. Amazing. Please go forward.
So why I'm saying that is because where are the recruits going to come from? They're not going to come from Afghanistan. They are certainly not going to come from KP, right? Because largely that is a very Afghan centric, or they have a bent of mind towards Afghanistan, culturally as well as politically as well as ideologically. So where is ISKP going to recruit from? The Pakistanis, for the madrasa cha Pakistanis sitting in Pakistan, but how are they going to build the numbers against the TTP or against the Taliban, Afghan Taliban? So the next battle, if the battleground is the KP region, the FATA region, then where are these ISKP guys going to come from? Where is Boko Haram? Are they going to transfer them from Africa and they're going to come to Pakistan? What is going to be the route for them to land into Pakistan and fight the Afghans? That is number two. Number three, she talks about being on a plane and talking to, her air hostess telling her that, are you a Russian woman? Now, I'm surprised for a CIA agent. She doesn't even understand the local parlance and the nuances. Let me tell you, world over, if you go to any tourist destination, there will be a lot of women you will meet who will say they are Russians, but they are not Russians. They are Tajiks, they are Kazakhs, they are Uzbeks, they are Azerbaijanians, right?
Easy to explain now.
Very easy, but they call themselves Russians. They never say that we are from Azerbaijan, we are from Kazakhstan, we are from Uzbekistan, we are from these regions. They will always say we are Russians. And the whole Russian propaganda. Just give me one moment. Please.
Guys, by the time hit the like button.
Sorry. So what happened is, so when he says that these women are in Quetta, This should tell you that the Tajiks are in Quetta. So the ISIS, the ISKP have Tajiks as recruits not only in Pakistan but in the Central Asian belt as well. And if there are Tajik women involved, I am not surprised. But because when the Tajiks and everybody flies in, they would say we are from Russia.
Okay.
So again, she is trying to shift the blame that Russians have got something to do with ISIS, and everything has to do with Al Qaeda. Nothing has to do with US.
She's cleaning the plank.
She's cleaning the plank, but then she talks about Sanaullah Ghaffari,
Uh,
right? And she very conveniently says, "Oh, he's Haqqani's right-hand man. He was sitting with Haqqani." The CIA claims he was with Haqqani from 2010 to 2012. This guy, basically, his father had fought alongside Gulbuddin Hikmatyar. He had done it from Ghaffari Madrasa in Kabul. He had studied from Kabul University. He joined Afghan army, and 2016 he was given a license of weapon from the Interior Ministry of Afghanistan. 2018, when his card came out, he was the personal bodyguard for Rashid Dostum as well as Amarullah Saleh.
And guys, today let's ask him what is his designation.
I'll come to that later. But where was Sanaullah Ghaffari between 2012 and 2015? Sanaullah Ghaffari, along with 30 other Afghan commandos from the Afghan army, went to Syria and fought there for 3 years under Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
Baghdadi.
Right? Then he comes back to Afghanistan and he joins this firm and he gets an Interior Ministry license, and then he becomes the personal bodyguard of Amarullah Saleh. After Amarullah Saleh, after the Taliban comes into power, Ghaffari is the one who is the head of ISIS in Kabul and orchestrates the bombing of that airport in Kabul.
Killing 13 Americans.
Killing 13 Americans. Then he gets into Kunar and he's chased into Kunar, and then Americans say he was dead. The American media made a noise he's dead. The Afghans claim that he is somebody who ran away with grievous injuries and is still living in Panjor region. His Sanaullah Ghaffari's family lives in Pakistan.
That is known. Quetta mein rehti hai.
ठीक है, Quetta में रहते हैं, right? Sanaullah Ghaffari is not a Haqqani man. Sanaullah Ghaffari has far more links with ANDSF, with Americans, than he had with Haqqani at a certain point of time. So basically what she's trying to say is she's trying to wash off her hands by saying that whatever is ISIS or ISKP is Al-Qaeda its own doing, is a part of Al-Qaeda. Americans have nothing to do with it.
Okay.
Which is a blatant lie.
One second. Now, guys, one of the things that we must understand, jo cheez Raja ji bata rahe hain humko, the whole game of ISKP, we've talked about it. I think some people are not able to kind of put the picture in this thing. So let me just take a minute and explain to you. ISKP was an organization which basically existed in Khorasan. Khorasan province jo hai, अब वो एक छोटा सा है, but it's supposed to be a very large area. Khorasan में एक छोटा सा ISIS का यूनिट था. ये यूनिट लिटरली डेसिमेट हो रखा था एट द टाइम व्हेन द अमेरिकन्स वर देयर. अगर आपको याद होगा, ये जो ड्रोन स्ट्राइक्स होती थी ना पाकिस्तान के ऊपर ड्यूरिंग ओबामा's टाइम, a lot of them were done on these camps that were converting to ISIS from the local these things. Now, one of the things that you need to understand about ISIS is जब मिनट अफगानिस्तान का ये कचरा खत्म हुआ और सीरिया की वॉर खत्म हुई, a lot of the fighters were brought in from Syria and they joined the ranks here. एलईटी जिसके पास पैसे नहीं है अभी इस टाइम पे, a lot of people must understand, लश्कर के पास, तोयबा के पास पैसे नहीं है. His people are joining ISIS to swell up the ranks, and ये लोग जो अमेरिका का एक बड़ा गेम है वो खेलने वाले हैं. बड़ा गेम क्या है? रशिया पे अटैक करना है, ईरान पे अटैक करना है, इंडिया पे अटैक करना है, चाइना में उंगली करनी है. ठीक है. Now, a lot of their recruits are coming in from Tajikistan because Tajikistan में बिल्कुल भी employment नहीं है. Southern Tajikistan is absolutely dead right now this time.
And highly radicalized.
Sanaullah Ghaffari को, by the way, has been exposed as the head of ISIS by none other than Amrullah Saleh himself. उसकी ट्वीट है ये, ठीक है, उसने ट्वीट करके बोला है कि साहब he is currently the head of ISIS, he stays here, उसकी फैमिली यहाँ रहती है, and as a matter of fact अमरुल्लाह साले की पुरानी ट्वीट देखेंगे तो उसका मोबाइल नंबर भी डाला हुआ उसने.
Yes.
उसका मोबाइल नंबर भी है वहां पर. So that tells you the entire picture कि ये गेम चल रही है. Now Americans are using these ISIS to create trouble in this region. So for this American spy to come out and say कि नहीं 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 नहीं, it is the other way around. तालिबान यूज कर रहा है इसको. When ISKP is actually dead against Taliban.
If you remember, Adi, Donald Trump brought the mother of all bombs in Kunar, if you remember.
जी.
That is where our movie also came out, na? The Kerala story pe fir jo nikla tha, right? So they tried to decimate them. Now let's look at ISIS Central and let's look at ISKP. Right now, ISIS Central is something, and this is what everybody said why ISIS is dangerous is because once it collapsed in Syria, a lot of its fighters threw away the weapons and went back, living in the community. The problem today in Europe, in US, in Western countries is that once they have opened their borders, these central ISIS guys have gotten into it. And it is not the Al Qaeda boys who have went into where, Taliban is giving them passports and saying that you enter with false passports. It's the Western governments who are facilitating this movement on their own. Right? Lot of ISIS boys were also Al Qaeda boys.
Yep. Upgraded from Al Qaeda to ISIS because पैसे कम मिलते हैं.
Upgraded from. नहीं. What happened was after Osama bin Laden died, Al Qaeda became very, very weak because Ayman al-Zawahiri was not somebody who was a very strong leader, and Taliban, Al Qaeda was on a run in Afghanistan, but Al Qaeda in Iraq was gaining, and a lot of them saw that what Zawahiri was trying to do was not something they would wished for because at that time they actually thought they're winning Iraq and they're winning Syria.
Okay.
Right. So they were on a run here, but they were gaining ground there. So that is why a lot of boys switched. What would have happened after the collapse of ISIS is that some of the boys would have come back into the folds of Al Qaeda. But majority of ISIS guys dissipated back into the communities, and then they could have been sitting somewhere as sleeper cells.
Especially the Arab ISIS. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, the Arab ISIS. Right. So the problem is where she says that there is sleeper cells and they're waiting for the handler to come in. If you look at the attacks which have happened in the West after that, these are attacks which are enabled basically by somebody who doesn't know who's the operative on the ground. It's done completely through, mobile networks or through internet. There is no physical handling of the terrorist on the ground. He's just being enabled to carry out an attack. And that is why the ISIS attacks are sporadic attacks in the West, knife attacks, enablement attacks. But if you look at the attacks in Russia, they are different attacks. Now tell me, Aadi, the question I have for Sarah Adams is, if 1,000 terrorists have got into America and they have no clue who they are, given the access of military-grade weapon in America, how bad the internal situation for America is and who are they waiting for, number one. He very casually claims that, if they carry out attacks, 8-10 attacks, they'll say, okay, we'll go back and hit you in Afghanistan. But if you have 1,000-strong force sitting in America with a military-grade weapon and you try to hit them in Afghanistan, the havoc they will run on the streets of US. How are you going to compensate that? How is your internal security going to look at that?
Who will you hit
so
then?
This is a lot. Yeah, who do you hit then and where do you fight them then? So how do you go about this? Then she talks about Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah.
Right? And that is the truth. This is what we have been saying. Achha, she talks a lot about Pakistan, Afghanistan, India. She doesn't talk about Qatar. She just makes a passing remark. right? Because we know the biggest enablement of terror is happening through Qatar. Hamas is sitting in Qatar, ISIS is sitting in Qatar, Jabhat
सारे
al
बैठे हैं,
Nusra is sitting in Qatar. So
everyone
Qatar
is
has
sitting.
basically everybody is sitting in Qatar, right? She doesn't talk about that. So the point is, if Americans think that everything is there, what she's basically trying to say is that, oh, Joe Biden has screwed up the policy, and Joe Biden has screwed up the policy. They have given power to Taliban, and Taliban are the bad guys. She's also telling the Pakistanis that we are your only saviors, nobody else can save you. By doing
Hmm.
fear mongering of India, that India is paying them to bump you off. And then she talks about the larger plan of, you know,
The Fatah plan.
uh, no, the Fatah plan, which is linked to Kashmir.
हाँ, तो वो थोड़ा let's take that up now. I wanted to actually tell you that. Guys, ये Fatah plan पे जरा ध्यान से सुनिएगा, because this is now, if this is the future plan, okay? If this future plan comes about, the Pakistan को जो whatever assurance you're giving it, you're basically assuring the Pakistanis of a complete breakup of Pakistan, right? So please understand, this is a very interesting. So, and she talks about a lot of people which are currently in the picture, and वहां पर आपका राजा साहब का पिछला वाला जो हमारा discussion था about Imran Khan, that comes into force quite hard. So why don't you tell us what is this Fatah plan?
So basically, what she's saying is that what we have see what she has said is what we discussed about, I think, 4 or 5 podcasts before, where I
Hmm.
explained that how the Taliban would like to take over Pakistan. See, we have to understand one more thing, and which is very important. Neither Al Qaeda nor Taliban has forgiven Pakistan for handing Osama bin Laden to the Americans.
Yep, absolutely.
Ideologically, Pakistan is an enemy state to Taliban. Why? Because Taliban, Pakistanis are collaborators of US.
Hmm.
They're driven by the Western interests and not the Islamic interests, right? They see Pakistan as a corrupt, inept state which needs to have Islamic governance in place. They see the corrupt Islamic, practices happening in Pakistan.
Hmm.
The Taliban is going to go over and try to control Pakistan. They are going to expand into Pakistan. KP is the first region which will fall to them. Why? Because it has traditionally always been, one, sovereign, two, extremely radicalized, in term, three, culturally very, very, you know, towards Afghanistan than the Pakistani Punjabis. Four, the way Pakistanis have treated the Pashtuns since 1947, right? So that is something we have to understand. Why is TTP what TTP is? Why is TTP doing what it is doing in Pakistan? It has been the Taliban plan all along. Even when Taliban was on the run, they had a game plan in place for Pakistan. And that is where TTP came into picture. Because they knew if they had to run away from there, they would have to have a stronghold somewhere else. And KPK provides them, that region to survive. Now, all along the Afghan war, everybody was saying that, Taliban is an ISI puppet
Hmm. No.
and it is all an ISI game.
Rajuddin
I think,
Haqqani's ISI boy.
yeah, the Quetta Shora is ISI guy, and Quetta Shora is something which is there. But I think, not I think, I can say this with a certain fact of conviction, that the Afghans played the Pakistanis the way Pakistanis tried played the Afghans. Afghans knew that Pakistanis are our enemy. They are collaborating with our enemy, and Afghans used them to their advantage and also created enough opposition in Pakistan in the name of TTP while going through this. So it was like you scratch my back, I scratch your back, but at the end of the day, I'm going to plunge a knife in your back, and that is what Taliban has done with Pakistan.
Can
They
I
have
just
used them.
can I can I
Hmm.
just stop you here? One of the you've said something very interesting. आप अगर आप when you look at the situation now, Okay, so that tells you a couple of things. And she mentioned two names. One is KPK, and then she said Balochistan, and she said after they ये जो setup वेटअप करके Balochistan KPK को setup करके next target will be Kashmir, right?
Hmm.
So that's something that she dropped right there. So that to me is a plant. Kashmir name is डाल दो वहां पर आगे. It's a bloody plant. They might have plans of that Chitral region and all that stuff, but for these dumb freaking
Kashmir is
Americans,
too vast. Yeah, they don't
yeah,
understand.
these dumb freaking American. I want to say something else, but I'm saying freaking. you know, they don't kind of understand this. There are two things. One, that tells you a lot about the CIA's ability to decipher information. Okay, we sitting here with our computer checking on Twitter and some other channels, we are able to find out what the game is, what's happening in this entire region. बड़े आराम से पता चल रहा है. We know the people. As a matter of fact, we've predicted incidents and they've happened already, right? the the point that I'm coming to is straightforward when she's coming out and saying Balochistan. Now, this is very important, and I've been trying to say this for a while that Americans want Balochistan separated out from Pakistan. It'll be देखो यार, if I was America, I will say I'll need a base here, man. With these damn Pakistanis, I can't trust them. Separate out this area. As it is, Baloch are doing something. Separate out this area. बिठाओ वहां पर. Let's sit down, bloody make a base there and be done with it. That is
She's
the
working.
only inference I take from this conversation, because
No, let me add to that. You are right in your
hmm,
assessment, but there is another thing into it. She's
okay.
virtue signaling the Chinese. She's virtue signaling the Chinese, saying that the Balochistan. See, Adi, if you remember, I have always, we have always discussed this thing that Balochistan is a part of the Afghan Taliban scheme of things, right? Because a huge landmass, very less population, easy for insurgency, easy for forces to get in and do this. The point is, if we talk about Balochistan, and if we talk about the way she's basically virtue signaling the Chinese, saying that it is going to
You're
fall.
done. You're
You are
done.
done, and you're done in the region. This is gonna go the Afghan Taliban way, right? I also remember when I spoke about why Balochistan and how Taliban and the Baloch have a common understanding of separating this area from Pakistan, and they have joined hands on it. There is one of our viewers, I think he's from Pakistan, and he has literally been, kind of trolling me, saying that I wanted to buy property in Quetta. Now I cannot buy because you have been saying that this is going to happen. But this is going to happen. We can see it loud and clear. It is a plan which is in place, which is going to happen. Because these areas, one, are hostile to the Pakistanis. The Chinese have not committed themselves militarily, right? And then these areas are very, very rife, owing to its topography, for any insurgent group to come and take control of large parts. And if BLA, if Baloch Liberation Army, if people fighting insurgency on the Baloch side are joining hands with TTP, are bringing in some of TTP boys and increasing their capability, that only means that you have a larger understanding with TTP, because you cannot think that TTP will then let you say, okay, you have your portion which is gone and we're gonna have our portion which is gone. You are looking at a consolidated place. You might have your own power structures, but it is going to be one region. But the first one to fall will be the Fatah. What she talks about, Operation Fatah.
वो तो हो गया है
Basically,
ना
she's
already.
talking.
वो तो हो गया है.
Basically, she's
Your
talking about.
chief
No,
minister Punjab is
she's
saying it's
saying.
a corridor of terrorists.
Yeah, so she's saying Fatah. It is not Fatah. It is Fatah. It is the Fatah region she's talking about, and mistakenly calling it Operation Fatah.
हो भी सकता है. Dumb freaking Americans.
Because the game is on in Fatah. The game is on in Fatah between the TTP and now the ISKP.
Yeah, there is a full blown war there.
So what Americans are saying is that tomorrow, if something goes wrong, it will all be Al Qaeda fighting among each other. We have got nothing to do in Pakistan. Pakistan goes through the dogs. It is their own doing, because one side of ISKP is being protected by the Pakistani establishment. Now she has given enough ammunition to the Afghans saying that ISKP is a no, not why only Afghans. Let's look at the Israeli attack. Let's look at Hamas. She's pointing fingers at Taliban, right? Let's reverse it and point fingers at ISKP because ISKP fighters issued photographs, published their photographs of their two fighters who died on 7th of October.
Yep.
How possible it is that the Hamas guys took training from the ISKP sitting in either in the Fatah region or somewhere close to the Afghan border.
Sir, but they've been,
And
they've
and
been
if
trained by the ISI.
yeah, and why does she think, why she says that, oh, we look at it buckets, we didn't see the Palestinians, what they're doing in Afghanistan. If CIA is so bad that they cannot pick up what is happening in Afghanistan while a full-fledged training of Hamas people was going on, then I think it's chapter closed for CIA.
That's
Right?
the
Number one.
beauty of it, yeah.
Number two, it is she says, oh, everybody knows Hamas is Shia. Hamas was never Shia. Hamas is a Sunni fighting force.
That's why they're expendable.
Hamas is not a Shia military force. Hezbollah is a Shia military force. She labeled Hamas as a Shia military force, not the Hezbollah. Hamas is the military wing of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Correct.
So she made a blatant false claim saying that, oh, Hamas is a Shia militant group. We thought, oh, what the Iranians have got to do with it. Hamas never was. It was always the Hezbollah. That is how bad she is on that podcast. And, any guy with half a brain would have countered and said, hey, hold on. What are you talking about? Let's talk about this. Let's talk about Hezbollah. Let's talk about Sanaullah Ghaffari. Let's talk about ISKP. Let's talk about the Iranians who tried to hit Jaish-e-Adl camp. And she said, oh, they wanted to hit the ISIS camp. And they just blew up something which was not there, right?
Bull.
Jaish-e-Adl camp is there since 90s. It is the main recruitment camp for the ISKP and for Jaish-e-Adl, who's been fighting in Balochistan, in the Iran, Sistan-Balochistan region of Iran.
Mm-hmm.
She just whitewashes all of this and she wants to put every blame onto Afghanistan. Is she trying to say that if the Americans will have to come back into Afghanistan and get back into Pakistan and fight the Talibs?
Or their intelligence is as pathetic as that.
And then she makes a claim, then she makes another very, outrageous claim. I would not say outrageous, another half-truth. She says that, Haqqani went to, where did she say? Libya.
Dubai.
No, Libya.
Libya to buy
For the
weapons.
To buy weapons. So basically what she is basically vetting is what we discussed in our podcast, where I said that a lot of Ukrainian weapons are on sale on the dark web.
You don't
And
need
they're
to go to
getting
Libya
back
for that.
and that is why they got back into Hamas' hand.
Yep.
It's the Ukrainian weapons which are being used by the Hamas. So that is how bad the American war in the Russian region is going, that Ukrainians are selling the weapons back to their adversaries. That tells you how bad the US planning of the Middle East and of Afghanistan, Pakistan is. How much privilege there is in the US system where they cannot even control their own supplies. Their own supplies are being used against them.
This is very interesting. You said, if you look at the rat line, and this is let's take up audience questions after this. You look at the rat line which is being. She said, I don't know anything about the Ukrainian rat line. Are you serious? They're coming out from freaking Odessa. They're going into bloody Turkey. Turkey se wo Syria mein ja rahe hain. Syria se they're getting distributed. This is very well known.
And the Turkish have now finished that visa system also to facilitate that movement seamlessly.
And by the way,
the whole world knows about it. She doesn't know about it. She's CIA.
Yeah.
But she knows that the weapons are coming in Libya.
Who let the people inside Russia? Turkey. The first attack that happened in Moscow, the Moscow attack, that was guys who renewed their visa in Turkey.
In Turkey. Then the second attempt. The Turkish went and gave information on the second attack, and they said we prevented it, but it happened in Dagestan.
Can you imagine this? So there's something wrong here, and I think she's either very confused what is happening. Two, either the
I
CIA is
think
out of his mind. They don't know what's actually taking place in the region, which may explain the way that they are handling. Because Hamas has trained with Pakistan, we know it for a fact. We've been saying since October the Chinese are involved. Nobody believed us. Today the Chinese are involved. Everybody is saying.
no. You know what? I think she has a lot of axe to grind against her own agency, CIA, as well as the
Ah,
FBI.
yeah.
Right? So she's taking out all of her frustration because of the screwed up Benghazi attacks, which have not gone well for her, and she wants retribution for that. And she's giving all these, half-truth, uh, incomprehensible kind of ideas and solutions, and trying to screw everybody around, saying that, oh, we are in a kind of a flux where everything is going to explode and we have no control over it.
That's
But the
as
fact of the
dangerous, man.
matter is, when the fact of the matter is, we know that the Americans are funding, aiding ISKP sitting in Pakistan,
Yep.
right? We know for a fact CIA is involved. We know for a fact that Fatah is going to fall to Afghanistan, to Taliban. We know that the next fight, the major regional terror fight, is going to happen within Pakistan. We know Taliban is an expansionist force, and Taliban is a soft power of Al Qaeda, and Taliban wants to expand.
Hmm.
Right? We have always said this, and we have been countered saying that no, Taliban has no ambitions to expand. Taliban is an expansionist force. We know that the problem of recruitment now we know, thanks to her, that the ISKP recruitment, future recruitment, is going to come from Africa.
That we know. And I said this. Me and General Ryan, we were discussing this. We said this about Saturday. In my assessment, why Africa is because that's the only continent where there are wars, but there's no attention. That's one of the reason. That's one of the reason that in the Sahel, if you look at it, the Sahel region, which is full of these Al Qaeda and all these chaps, things are kind of heating up there. There is stuff which is happening in what do you call Libya. There's stuff which is happening all around this particular region. So there's some something happening which we will, and this explains it all, that something is basically recruitment drives taking place in that place to kind of fill up ranks of any stupid organization that they're building.
True, because from years, and I think it was, yeah, the first COVID lockdown. I wrote about it also in
Mm.
response to the Tablighi Jamaats. When it was banned here,
Yeah, yeah.
Tablighi Jamaat is the forefront of recruitment in Africa for Al Qaeda.
Ooh.
They are the ones who have done recruitment in Afghanistan. So AQIM and Boko Haram, they have run havoc in large parts of Africa. It's AQIM, which is, the Al Qaeda in Maghreb we're talking about. And that is what she is now pinning the blame on for the Benghazi attacks. Benghazi attacks, sorry.
But this is very interesting that this podcast comes out at this time, because today the US has issued a military alert for all its military bases in Europe and in that region, fearing a terrorist attack.
No, but you know what is
It- it-
surprising?
huh.
Adi, just give me 2 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
She is not questioning Sirajuddin Haqqani, who's the most wanted man, but she's questioning Musa, who's sitting in his interior ministry. We don't even know if Musa is sitting there and making passports or not. Right? So that tells you how bad her overall assessment. And she calls herself an expert because, oh, I've been looking at the Kashmiri, things and that gives. And then she talks about Harkatul Mujahideen. What she doesn't realize is that the Harkatul Mujahideen, which was operating in Afghanistan, and the Harkatul Mujahideen, which was operating in Kashmir, were two different factions. Harkatul Mujahideen is the one which became Lashkar-e-Toiba later on.
Yeah.
That is how bad her research on this area is. That is how bad her grip on the terror organizations working in Pakistan, Afghanistan is.
This, I was telling you about this terror attacks. To me, it's a very dangerous sign, because if there is a hit on anything, that opens the gate for USA to go to war.
See, the Americans are not going to go to war. What Americans are saying is that, oh, Russians, you are under trouble. we are also under the same threat, that they are negating this game. They're completely negating this game. They are just trying to virtue signal the whole West is in trouble because there are attacks on Russia, there are attacks on Iran. They are saying, "Oh, the ISIS has resurfaced in a big way, and now America is also in trouble,
Under threat. Cover
under
your
threat."
ass.
If you cover you, and if America is under threat, what explains the illegal immigration which is happening into US? How does America allow that to happen? How does
That is
7 million people end up into US, and how does more than 1,000 terrorists? Because that was the first, worry of anybody when the borders are porous. You're saying you're letting people in without vetting them.
yep.
So if there is no vetting happening, you have basically opened the gates for your आओ और मुझे मारो वाला के हैं कि आओ आओ मुझे मारो, come and kill me, come and hit me. You are giving them the opportunity to do that.
I, to me, it was this whole thing was a land of farce to me, honestly. Entire land of farce. I don't know what the hell she was talking about. I saw her first podcast also. I was like, yeah, this woman is crazy. Anyways, I have tried to write to her on Twitter. Let's see if she responds to me and agrees for an
Oh, she's
interview.
not gonna. She won't respond to you or me.
If she
That's for sure.
does, I'm gonna rip her head open.
Yeah, because she will have no answers to it.
I'm gonna rip her head open if she responds to it, because this is absolutely ridiculous. Guys, जरा like करो, video को subscribe करो. It's this is a very this is a very important subject that we need to kind of understand, because ये जो terrorist groups हैं यहाँ पर, under the guise of a weakening Pakistan, this is going to be the reality of the future. Trust you me, ये जो पाकिस्तान का जो entity है, this thing is weakening. ये terror groups are going to bloody run amok there, and ये चीज हम लोग बहुत time से बोल रहे हैं कि साहब, the great game so called is going to happen in Pakistan, right? And it has already started in Pakistan. So this whole podcast is to me, it's one, a plant. Two, it is a messaging towards their internal system, towards India, towards China, towards Pakistan, towards Afghanistan. Guys, you guys are in deep shit. And the third most important thing that comes out of this, that if this is the kind of analysis CIA does, no wonder they've been losing every damn war that they've stepped into since the Second World War. Because Second World War में CIA नहीं था, तो वो जीत गए. जहां CIA बना, you can imagine it is actually gone into the dump. So it is absolutely ridiculous what she's spoken, and no sense of reality. ठीक है?
No,
But
and you know what is very important also. They all talk about ISIS. They all talk about Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, but none of them talk about Zarqawi. Right? It was Zarqawi who basically started ISIS. Not only that, it was Zarqawi, it was Colin Powell, I think he was the Secretary of State, who used Zarqawi as a dangerous Al Qaeda operating in Iraq with Saddam Hussein, and they used it for weapons of mass destruction and all that to build that narrative getting into Iraq. When in reality, Zarqawi was never a part of Al Qaeda in Iraq that time. He was part of what was the name of the organization? Ansarul Islam.
Islam.
Yeah, Ansarul Islam was a Salafi organization which was actually fighting Saddam Hussein soldiers on the ground in
They
Iraq.
were fighting with the Americans, actually.
They were fighting Saddam Hussein soldiers when Saddam was in power.
Apart
And when
from that,
Americans,
they caught him, put him in prison. Then he got radicalized, and he made this organization. Then they
then he
thought,
made
okay,
Maqsadi. No, that is where he was ideologically with Maqsadi. Basically, he wanted to throw away the Jordanian Hashemite kingdom.
here's my kingdom.
So, yeah, they were trying to plan an attack, and they got to know, and then he ran away to Pakistan, to Afghanistan, met Maqsadi. That's a long story, that's the entire story of Zarqawi. But the point is, it's Zarqawi who started all that AQI and AQIS, and from AQIS it became ISIS, and that is where
ISIS.
Sanaullah Ghaffari, where Sanaullah Ghaffari fits in. So I was just trying to put the pieces together.
Yeah, it's a very interesting game, and guys, मेरे को तो बहुत interest है इस region के ये terrorist groups के अंदर, because they are very dynamic. One thing that you need to understand, they are very, very extremely dynamic, extremely modern. They are not as stupid as they were before. ठीक है? So we need to kind of figure out, because these guys are flipping around.
They collaborate where it is needed to collaborate. They also compete where it is needed to compete. right? They have done that. Look at Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed.
Yep. They've rebranded themselves
Jash has
completely.
always Jash has always purged on LET, have purged on the recruitments, but when it comes to collaboration, they have collaborated as well. In Jammu and Kashmir, they have collaborated as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so it's not, they are not segregated organizations which work into silos. These organizations do have their silos, but when they come to work under an operational area, there are a lot of grays. There's nothing black and white about these organizations, and that
वही
is
तो है
why
ना.
the terrorism is so dynamic, and that is what Muslim Brotherhood has used. That is why I say, the problem with AQIS, Al Qaeda in Al Qaeda in Indian state, and ISIS का जो bayat है, उसमें भी कहीं collaboration है, because if you look at PFI, the way PFI worked on the ground, PFI had linked with ISIS. PFI also had linked with Al Nusra. Now Al
Nusra,
Nusra was the front of Al Qaeda,
Al Qaeda.
and PFI was in contact with both of these organizations via Qatar.
Exactly. Guys, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into your questions. But before that, my request to everybody, like, subscribe, as I said, and after the podcast finish, please write your comments here. I know this stuff is a bit complicated. If you guys find some interest in it, please watch our episodes before. With Rajaji, with Colonel Ajay Raina, we've actually deciphered these groups quite a bit, and it is very, very important for us to understand all this stuff. If you want to know the regional geopolitics or region में, especially Pakistan में क्या हो रहा है, you need to understand these groups. हम लोग ना पाकिस्तान में फंसे रहते हैं. शहबाज शरीफ ने ये बोल दिया, आसिम मुनीर ने बोल दिया, हाँ वो ठीक है. But it is actually these groups that are going to rule the roost going forward. So please do that. And yes, if you guys can contribute towards this channel using the QR code, या फिर PayPal, which is in the description, or super stickers, super chats, or you can become members. सबसे पहले Bhupendra ji, thank you so much, and thank you so much, man. I saw your mail. I will respond to you. I do really want to get my brand registered, so I will do that, and I will kind of respond to you, sir. Thank you so very much for your kind assistance. Piyush Sethji, thank you so much. You say, what is the impact of India into JP Morgan brand index? Signs that India is improving relations with the deep state. It's not improving, it's negotiations happening with the deep state. They'll give you one thing, they'll take away one thing from you, they'll try and put some pressure on you from one side, relieve some pressure on you the other side. So this is kind of the negotiations that they do. So yeah, this is the game. And I'm telling you, this podcast is part of that game. You watch something, huh? The Sean Ryan show made a shot of that itself, that $10 million ka thing. They made a shot, and that's the first shot of the show that they put out. Why? There's
Yeah,
these questions you must ask. Norman
absolutely.
Sheikh Saab, thank you so much. You say, sir, she trying to build a narrative just before the Pakistani operation in KPK and trying to divide Taliban, not realizing Haqqani will be gone next day if he dare challenges Kandahar.
See, they're not trying to create the narrative. They already are playing on the ground. If the Pakistani ISI will be looking at this podcast of Sarah Adams, they would be laughing their head off, because the way she has absolved them of every wrongdoing which is happening in Pakistan, one, and she has painted Taliban the entire bad picture and said that they are the biggest evil. We are not saying that Taliban doesn't have their own ambitions. They are not a part of Muslim Brotherhood. They have a larger game at play. They do. But saying that it is the Pakistan which has been the enabler of all this terrorism which we have seen emanating from the region and you know dissipating into the whole world. The victim, the Pakistan, is the one which plays this game from its home front. There is no other country which uses terrorism as a state policy except Pakistan. So even if Pakistanis are looking at launching a, they've called Operation Iftizam, whatever they call it, Azma Iftizam, they're calling it. But where is this operation happening? It is not happening because they have already developed cold feet onto that. Why they have developed cold feet is because they know that they are not equipped to get one into the region, and then they will be dragging this fight down into the streets of Quetta, Peshawar, and below. If they try to do a militarily, try to move into militarily into KPK, because KPK is and always was an area which was bereft of any Pakistani forces, and it's a very fiercely independent area which is still governed tribally. uh, and Pashtuns, given the political situation in Pakistan, right now the Pakistani military is very, very weak, both politically as well as militarily, because there are divisions within Pakistani army as well. So the Pakistanis might, to please the Chinese, would say that we have launched an operation. But what is the capability of Pakistan to launch a large-scale operation is something which is big question to me.
Yeah. Anandji, thank you so much. You say karma matters on which Britishers funded an artificial made soft state like Bikaristan is suffering. Sir, the suffering is just begun. Trust me, the amount of these radicals that they've taken into their country, their suffering has just begun. Miss Gurley says, Adi, Modi visiting Russia at this stage merits. We've got the same enemy.
Of course, it merits. Why doesn't it merit? It has its own merits, and yes, it's a very, very strong signal.
Yeah. Kafir Krish, thank you so much, says Raja Munirji, Islamists use terror to strike fear in our heart, but today we are not affected by such attacks psychologically. I mean, terror isn't that serious for the world as it was before. Would you agree to this?
See, terror isn't serious because unless and until it directly affects us, the day it directly starts affecting us, it becomes serious for us. If you look at the way terror operates, terror is not, terror is something which has become a mainstream military tool for the Western and other, or even the Middle Eastern, countries to use against each other in this war. It has become
Yeah.
the new medium of war, fighting your adversaries all around. So
Hmm.
that is, and because you see so much of war and so much of glory all around, after a mile, your mind normalizes to violence of what is happening around you. So it doesn't affect you emotionally the way it used to affect, say, let's say 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Because the amount of violence and the amount of deaths become so normalized, and that it stops affecting you psychologically. But it does
True.
affect you. It does
True.
affect you. It still affects you.
So he has some further questions. Let me just read them all out.
Sure.
Kafir Krishji, once again, thank you. You said, do you think that's why they changed the tactics and started mass rapes and also violence on the streets? And also going behind individuals, whoever speaks against them? Is this a new form of fear that they're creating? Individualistic fear, not a group fear, which is very interesting as a paradigm. He also says, I just wanted to know that you're observing something like which I am, or is it me going out of track? My opinion, you're observing something really correct. It is individualistic fear that they're going for rather than a collective fear.
See, if you talk about rapes, if you remember the Bangladesh war, if you remember the Operation Searchlight in Bangladesh, rape was used as an instrument to strike fear into a community,
Hmm.
into the Bangladeshis, to humiliate
What's
them.
happening?
Rape
What's
has
happening
always
in
been
what's happening in Bengal?
what's happening in Bengal. Rape is always a weapon to humiliate your, adversary, or to humiliate the one you are standing up against. So
True.
whether it is done at a community level or it is done at a individual level, it always depends on, one, what is your penetration into it, two, what is your objective, and three, how much of capability you have to carry it out in numbers.
Absolutely. Shri Hari ji, thank you so much for becoming a member. Navlesh ji, thank you so much for your super sticker. वीना जी, मोदी साहब गुजराती हैं, सस्ता तो अच्छा होगा, $10 million में कर लिया ना.
Oh, well, the Americans will be scratching their head saying that we have paid Pakistan so much, we could never get this result. $10 million have got Indian results.
You know, when I heard
It's
this for the
complete.
first time, I'm like, 10 million? That's fucking peanuts, yaar. What are you talking about? इतने सारे लिस्ट 60 70 ठोक दिए, 10 मिलियन में कैलकुलेट करो सारा, ये तो सस्ते
The
में पड़ गया यार.
Pakistanis, the
That's fine, ठीक है.
Pakistani ex-journals or the Pakistani, paramilitary forces commanders will do this in $1 million. Their price will be far lesser than what you're talking about in Taliban, and they'll be more effective
Apart
because
from
it's
that,
sitting in Pakistan.
my whole point is, if we need to actually get it done, this is the way you will do it.
Yeah. So
ठीक
what
है,
happened?
let's.
So what happened? So then what happens to the Pakistani claim that a lot of people are from Dubai being recruited? So that means Pakistan is lying. The ISI is lying.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Piyush ji, what is the impact of India getting? Acha, this I have
ये
already
तो हो
taken.
गया.
Piyush Saab. Saravani ji, I would like to give credit to our to our government for turning Afghanistan to listen to Delhi and not Washington DC alone. That too.
See, the Afghans listen to everybody. Don't be under the impression that they are only listening to DC or only to New Delhi. The Afghans listen to the Chinese. The Afghans listen to the Turkish. The Afghans listen to the Iranians. The Afghan listens to DC. The Afghans listen to us as well. Depends on what interest we are talking about and much mutual benefit are we talking about. So Afghans are not somebody who is following blindly the Americans like the Pakistanis have done for very long. Afghans are hedging their bets depending, and they listen to Russians also, you know. So it depends on how what is in it for Afghans for them to discuss with what they are discussing. But saying that, yes, given what the situation which was there when Taliban took over to now, within a span of 5 years, the relationship we have able to build on a diplomatic front, I think the government of India has done a commendable job on that.
True. Absolutely. Ranga Rock Saab says, why aren't they hiring for Chechnya, Dagestan, or Caucasus in general? A lot of unemployed people there as well.
They will. They will be hiring from their ISKP will be see the Tajiks are there. The Central Asians slowly will be coming into these things. You also remember that Taliban also has a unit of Tajikistan. There are Tajik, and yes, even this Sanaullah Ghaffari is ethnically a Tajik.
Tajik.
I forgot to. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
ethnically he was a Tajik.
And they've
So
also
they,
created na, the kya, Taliban Tajikistan.
so if you look at the Russian mafia, which operates around the globe, there are a lot of people from Dagestan, Chechnya, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, who operate in that mafia, who are on the lower, strata of that mafia, who are being fed in the mafia. So same way, they will be recruiting from these areas as well. They already are. It's just that Tajiks are prominent at the moment. You see more Tajiks than that.
Americana says, Munib sir, do you see any change in geography of maps in the region? Not officially, but
There
how
won't
much
be
should
any
we get?
official change, but yes, there is going to be a change administratively. KP will be gone from the Pakistani control. I've all been saying this for a very long time, and what Sarah Adams have said, I can now say this with even more conviction that KP is going to fall unless Imran comes to power, and then whole Pakistan falls.
Jai Krishna ji, thank you so much for this interesting question. This Harkatul Mujahideen has any link with the Mujahideen Council. It's not the Mujahideen Council, it's Muttahida Jihad Council. It's the MTC, which is the umbrella organization, as Rajaji wo bol rahe the na, they all coordinate and cooperate when the targets are the same. So when they have to coordinate, there's this council that they've created, which is called the Muttahida Jihad Council, wherein under which all these organizations kind of work against India and Kashmir and other places. Correct me if I'm wrong,
That
sir.
is United Jihad Council,
Yeah, yeah,
जिसको बोलते हैं UJC. This
yeah.
Harkatul Mujahideen was something which was fighting alongside Gulbuddin Hikmatyar in Afghanistan against the Russians. So,
True.
there is a confusion between the two.
Yeah. Rajesh ji says her claims are full of lies. What does the CIA want to do in the region and why CIA has planted her? Claims on Taliban is the diversionary tactics. Look west and strike in the east. India.
Well, one, as I said, that she's very, very upset with her own system in place in US. Right? She's very upset with CIA. She's very upset with FBI. She thinks they're incompetent. So I would call her half rogue agent. Second
Yeah.
thing is the American deep state is now contemplating,
A
seriously
shift.
thinking that Trump will come back. So they are looking at that possibility as well. Third, her denial is a testimony to the fact that the Americans are actively involved in ISKP in Pakistan. And the whitewashing Americans have done, they have always done this, they have whitewashed it, and then they have been found actively participating or being a partner to that particular organization. So there is a threefold thing here. She might be asking everybody to look somewhere else, but I think the time is gone where people would, she will be trying to create this thing. But neither the CIA nor the ISI nor the Indians will intelligence agencies will look at her and take her seriously because the claims she have made are absolutely
Rubbish. Okay, I think his system got hung up. He will join back. Let me just take this one. Sir, might be their plan to let us think that a war of that this is their way of thinking. We might come up with our own plan, and in the real, they have some other plans, which will obviously they will not reveal. You could do that, but with the way that the Americans have been behaving and with the way that the Americans have been actually doing stuff in this region, it doesn't really seem like it, because you look at the Benghazi attack. Okay, you guys should see this movie called The Benghazi Attack. It is absolutely amazing. आप वो movie देखो, you see how that embassy was literally left. Now I'll tell you another story. The Benghazi attack ke andar, now in Benghazi, these guys are so stupid, so bloody stupid. You must understand, these guys are in a place that they've been attacked before. They've actually taken a huge amount of casualties in this game, and now they have actually given $56 million to build up another embassy in Benghazi. Okay, so Benghazi
I'm
attack is absolutely one of the most ridiculous moments of the attack. As a matter of fact, the CIA and everybody had complete information of what is going to happen in that place.
there is a.
Complete
I'm sorry,
information.
my
And
internet
they,
went away.
yeah, that's all right. So I mean, it was absolutely stupid of them not to actually pick up on that attack. And now you look at it, the first round of defense in that Benghazi embassy were terrorists. The second round were terrorists, and the outside layer were also terrorists. So when the attack came, all three of these layers just washed away, and there were six guys who were CIA agents and their special forces chap with basic weaponry standing there to defend the embassy, because there was no one left there. All the people that were tasked to defend the embassy were all terrorists.
And just to add, one of the parameters was governed by a private security agency, which was a US agency, Blue Mountain.
Blue
So what she's
Mountain.
saying is that Blue Mountain basically hired terrorists. So even the US
Yeah,
hired own terrorists to protect themselves. That is how bad it is.
it's crazy. Kafir Krishi, he says, thank you so much. Firstly, government should start a fund named as Treatment for Radicals of Pakistan, and people will seriously fund it. And he says, once again, 11 million can be raised in few hours.
Uh,
उनसे
I
पैसे
think
लो, उसको कोई ठोको
100
जाके.
million can.
Okay, the Naked Drummer, interesting name. Thank you so much. He says, further in podcast, Sarah said the Taliban using India to off its own enemies who are in Pakistan, who are Pakistan aligned, and uh, making a new gen that is more Taliban aligned. When they turn their focus to Kashmir, this is the new gen that will be used against India. Thoughts? In their terms, that I think his internet is playing a little game. Thankfully, we are towards the end of the show. But what you're saying is interesting. But the Americans have a very binary view of situations. Okay, Americans look at the situation so binary कि भैया अगर ये पाकिस्तान है तो ये पाकिस्तान है, ये अफगानिस्तान है तो अफगानिस्तान है. If they think that they can turn around people like that, which they tried to do in the 80s and stuff like that, where we were not prepared. Today, that's not the case. Look at the way that the army responded yesterday on these attacks and that infiltration attempt. It's not that easy to do what they're kind of perceiving it to be done. And one of the biggest things that you will understand is Taliban stands to gain from India, right? And they know the second something is there with regards to India, which is negative to them, they will get cut off. So वो बहुत problem हो जाएगी, and then they will have to depend back on Pakistan, which they don't want to do. So I don't think they will go against India at all.
See, this is what I said. Her claim is outrageous. Why? Because what she's trying to tell you is she's trying to create a rift between the perceived Pakistani Taliban and the Kandahari Taliban. So she's basically telling the Pakistanis it's the Kandahari Taliban which you need to go after if you want to control the Afghanistan. Second thing is, she's contradicting her own self when she says that India is going to be there, because if the Taliban grand plan is to take control of Pakistan, there are two very very important allies which the Taliban needs. One is India and the other is Iran. Without Iranian and Indian support, Pakistan will never fall to Afghan Taliban. because the main supplies which are needed will be done through Iran and via India.
Yeah,
So either
yeah.
this part is true or that part is true. Which one is true? She needs to answer.
Gee. Kafir Krish, the Superman strikes again. Thank you so much. And guys, please give a big shout out to Kafir Krish for donating and contributing 10 memberships to some of our viewers right now. Thank you so much, brother. Avi Saab, thank you so very much for that generous contribution. You say, is it possible for India to leverage close ties with Israel's Mossad to compel the US deep state to support India's long term goal of breaking up Pakistan? Israel's grip on USA is strong. The US has its own Monroe Doctrine. India desperately needs its own. Do you think we really need USA's help to break Pakistan, or can we do it ourselves?
One, there is no evidence which says that the Israeli grip on US is very strong. On the contrary, it looks like the Americans have screwed up Israelis in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Two, and second thing is these things don't work like this where you tell Israelis to do something for you and they will, do the favor on part of the US and US will then do it. The relationship we have with US is very working, and these kind of endeavors which we talk about are always based on a country's own specific geopolitical and geostrategic advantages and disadvantages, their own interests. So it's not about Israel talking to US or India talking to Israel. It is about what US wants in this region. And let me tell you, the US would not want a very, very strong India. That is also a fact which we have to take care of. If Trump
Absolutely.
come back, yes, the policy will change, but till the time these Democrats are sitting in US, you have to be very, very wary of the US guys, because
Mhm.
they won't play one against another. They will be playing you against the Chinese and Chinese against the Pakistan. You against the Pakis and the Chinese, and then both against you against each other. So the Americans know how to keep the point the pot simmering for their own strategic interest. So I don't think they even have they have trouble with Israel right now. They are not going on very good terms with each other.
Last two, Akashji, thank you so much. Blinken hate speech allegations and CIA news. CIA is planning something big against India for which we are not prepared and we should be serious. I don't know if we are prepared or not and what that big thing is, but if
They
you,
tried it. They
you,
tried it
you
in elections. We don't know what it is. If you can tell us what it is, we'll talk about it more. But they tried to do a medal in the elections. They did it very openly. We all know that. But they have also realized that it's not working for them. It's not working for them.
funny
But
thing
if there
is,
is anything else you would want us to talk, we'll talk about it.
I'm, I'm one of the firm believers of one thing and call me a conspiracy theorist. But these sudden accidents that are happening, there's something seriously wrong, right? कुछ इतने
Yeah,
सारे एक
because
साथ नहीं
this doesn't make
something
sense.
is up somewhere
एक ही साथ इतने सारे एक ही साथ इतने सारे नहीं होते हैं. Even that looks something very fishy to me.
fishy.
I
You
agree.
can't have two airport roofs collapse at the same time, four bridges have collapsed. Oh, come on, man, let's
Hmm.
be serious. It just stuff that just doesn't collapse like that. So
Yeah.
there's something to all this stuff. Probably sometime later it'll come out. And guys, mind you, I said this about the neat paper. I said this about the neat paper. Look at the arrests today that are happening. There arrests in Rajasthan, Bihar, Gujarat, and Maharashtra. Four states people have got arrested. I am telling you, there is something behind this game that we don't understand, and nobody leaks a paper overnight, boss. So, kuch hai gadbad. Last question. Vivek Saab says, heard the news that Pakistan is seeking modern equipment and uh, small arms from the USA. They plan to carry out cross-border strikes inside Afghanistan, citing it as war on terror.
That is true. They have sought small arm weapons from the Americans, saying that we need latest weaponry. See, what they are saying is that we need to carry out the dirty work for the Chinese, and they're asking Americans to aid them into that, right?
Hmm.
But the Americans are not going to give them the weapons. It's the Chinese who might be providing them with the weapons, because the Chinese this time, usually what used to happen was Americans used to provide the money for any terror activity happening in
Yeah,
Pakistan.
yeah.
China used to provide the weapons. This time the Chinese have provided them the money, and they are looking at American weapons, because now they realize that the Afghan Taliban and the TTP are heavily equipped with latest American weapons, and they don't have a effective counter to those weapons. That is why they're looking to US to, and to remind you, they're not even looking for themselves. They will be selling these weapons to other terror groups who are going to fight TTP and Taliban in Pakistan.
Yeah. That I agree with. And guys, this discussion is not over because this thing is going to open out. Let me assure you, she's opened a can of worms. And आज मैं शाम को देख रहा था, I am starting to get some intel on this. राजा के साथ मैं share करूंगा, and we kind of build up on this discussion. Something is happening somewhere, and we are not able to figure out. Yeah, this is one of the things I saw. Norman Saab says ISKP has declared war on TTP. This is something
Well, the
I've seen today.
ISKP has declared a war on TTP. ISKP had already declared a war on Taliban, Afghan Taliban.
Yeah.
Right. If you look at the publications coming from ISKP, they have been very critical of Taliban and TTP both, and they have been talking about why they are doing so. So that war is already on. Right. That war has been declared months back.
Yeah.
Now we're going to see the action on the war.
Action on the ground. So a lot of bombs are going to explode, guys, and we shall be right here trying to analyze what the hell is happening in this region and trying to figure out what's happening. Rajaji, thank you so much for taking all the time. This is a interesting subject, a tough subject, but you pulled it off like a superstar. Thank you so much. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.